We're now live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Great. I'd like to welcome everybody to the May meeting of the Templeton Community Preservation Committee. This is an in-person meeting. All of our members are here, but we have a new member. We want to welcome aboard Candace Graves, representing Parks and Recreation. Would you like to say hello, Candace?
I don't know what to say.
They've just reformed the committee and you're on it and you got appointed.
Yes, I just got appointed for this to be on to here to represent the Recreation Commission. And I'm hoping we'll get into some good projects with you guys and see what it's all about.
Great, well, welcome. We also have Mike Dixon representing the Historic Commission, Dennis Rich from the Planning Board. My name is John Henshaw. I'm an at-large member. Joanne Burden and Carrie Novak are also at-large positions. George Andrews from Conservation may be getting here. We did see him the other day at the Riverside Park, River's Edge Park dedication. And we also will probably need a new representative from the Board of Assessors, as Brad Leighton, who was the representative from the assessors, is not running for re-election. So Brad did a great job for us while he was here and want to thank him for his service. With that, we'll move right ahead. The first item on the agenda is a discussion of the meeting minutes. We have two sets of minutes from our clerk, Dennis Rich. We have the February 10th meeting, which is an official meeting. And then we also had a March meeting, which was an informational only for a lack of quorum. So is there any, if everybody wants to take a chance to review the minutes, or if you've had a chance to read them, we can entertain a motion to accept those. Essentially, at the meeting last month, we were not able to finalize. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to talk about is our process for getting annual town meeting warrant articles in. We need to review our entire documentation package. Originally, when we first started, we were saying January, February is a good time, or December to start. But realistically, we need to start essentially with the start of the fiscal year. Any project that is monies to be spent by the town will need to go through the capital planning process where there's notification given. They start their process in September. So it would be good for any town project to start getting on the radar before September. If it's to a private organization or an outside organization such as, the Historical Society, that doesn't fall under the capital planning bylaw. So that's just one of the examples of things that we need to do to review our documentation. We also listed in there, we want 10 written copies. Back in 2008, everybody just worked on paper. Now we have email and et cetera, et cetera. So I would like to bring together, maybe we could get a small committee to review those and talk to the town about maybe getting some administrative support through our administrative budget. We could pay for some help if need be in that process. But I wanted to get that out there. That's something that I'm hoping we can tackle this coming fiscal year, which is starting July 1st. And so during that little spiel, I was hoping everybody would have a chance to review the minutes. They hadn't. All right. And so the February meeting, do we have any discussion or move to accept?
I make a motion, we accept the February minutes.
Okay, motion to accept. Do we have seconded by Mike? No, I guess we have all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so those are approved. Then the March 20th meeting, as noted, is simply some general discussion, but it was not no votes were taken, no business was conducted. And are we posting unofficial minutes?
Well, I have been, however, we talked about that last time. I like to do it because it just gives them an accounting for whatever happened that time.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like doing it on
Okay.
my committees.
Great. Sounds good to me. Do we want to move forward with these minutes?
Make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes from March 20th.
Okay, motion made
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, great. So these minutes will now be posted to the website via the scanning process. And when we have any formal votes, because of the whole Zoom world, we have to individually vote, but a meeting minute vote is unanimous and blah, blah, blah. So that's how we did it. Okay, next item on the agenda is the town meeting update. As you recall, we have two articles on the warrant last night. One was the general appropriation article with the anticipated revenue of $225,000 from billings to the surcharge, and a 100% match estimated for a total of $450,000 and allocated to the sub-accounts as is allowed through the statute, 5% to the administrative budget, 10% each to the reserves for open space, historic preservation, and community housing, and the balance of 65% going into the unbudgeted reserve, which is able to be spent on any of the three categories, and recreation, which can be used both from the unbudgeted reserve and the open space accounts. The other article was for $9,000, and that was for a planning study for the Board of Selectmen to spend to engage the services of an engineering firm to evaluate the emergency management building, also known as the former Baldwinville Fire Station, for what exactly would be needed to bring it up to snuff. In other words, what is the bottom line cost expected to be if we want to move forward to get that building rehabilitated? It is a historic building. It is in a historic district, and therefore it is eligible. One thing that has been noted would be to revert back to the original configuration of the doors, for example, and pointing up the bricks and things like that, but also rehabilitating the inside, which has never been done probably.
No, it has the original electrical on it, has the original plumbing on it.
Yeah, and so the MEMA folks use that as kind of their HQ.
Right, we do have a new furnace, the FEMA funds we use, we put a new furnace in about 2 years ago. But the new furnace is going into the old modine heaters, so it's really not efficient. And the electrical is definitely 1940s, 1950s vintage electrical. Given what we're using the building for, where we might run it on versus generators, that type of thing, it's really not set up well for.
Yeah, so hopefully that will give us, the framework for what we'll need to seek should the town decide to go forward with a project on that in the future. The other item that of note that passed last night, not of CPA funding, was that they did allocate $15,000 to the Gilman Waite building, which is essentially monies to be, as I understand it, used to get the bathrooms opened and for the concession stand. We recall that a couple of town meetings ago, an article failed that was to spend CPA monies to work on the field. There was a lot of contention and confusion. I think that part of that sprung the effort to formally create a Parks and Recreation Committee as opposed to Cemetery and Parks where it had fallen before. And so hopefully, that will go a long way. We have spent money there by moving the ball field and doing some other work on a different project. And so future projects are possible for any of the ball fields or any of the fields, recreation areas in town. In the olden days, up until like a couple of years ago, you had to create new stuff with CPA money to use CPA money. Now you can use it on existing, which makes a lot more sense. So that's my town meeting update. Does anybody else have anything they want
I
to
had
add?
a question just based on what you were talking about. Does it have to be a town funded field? Are the Little League fields, as an example? I mean, they're not owned by the town. But
Yeah, so any project that is not a municipally owned facility is eligible for funding, provided there is an explicit beneficial use to the townspeople. So for example, the Little League field, if monies were spent to that, on that, there would need to be a caveat that, there would be a beneficial use, which is, not like no rent or something to that effect. I know they have maintenance costs and things like that. So we would certainly need to evaluate it and look at what else might, need to be addressed for that. But
So a nonprofit could do that. Little League's a nonprofit, so they're capable because the town's children are in it, could qualify to get some funds for that.
yeah. And so in that case, what we would want to do is to get together with those who would be the responsible parties, and we could talk about what's needed, how to develop a
Yeah.
project to go forward.
And in that kind of case, it would just be what, first come, first serve, or I mean, when it comes to these projects, how does that work?
So, no, so the projects are brought to this committee and
Right.
evaluated, and then, we have to look at what monies are available.
Right,
And if there is a restricted amount of money available, obviously, it's not first come, first served, it's what's in the overall best.
well, I
interest
understand the
of
money
town.
wise, yeah,
So we would have to vote the project forward, and
Right.
if there were competing projects in limited funds, we would have to make the decision as to which or either or any we would support.
right,
And then once this committee is satisfied that the due diligence has been done and the project scope fits within the CPA guidelines, we have an organization called the Community Preservation Coalition, which kind of supports all the towns that have it. So they have a database of projects that have been funded, et cetera. And so it's a good place to look things up
right,
and to show what people have done. Once we pass a project, it goes to the Board of Selectmen to go onto the warrant. And so that includes what the work is and what are the dollars to spend.
because the project they're putting in is to get it evaluated and get some plans for Gilman Waite for the concession stand. It's got a lot of stuff that's been done to it in the inside of the building. The bathroom structure is framed out. There's a lot of the concession stand area is a lot of stuff put in. I guess the well and there's some water and different things. And so lots of people in this town put money into it and time into it. So that's why they did what they did last night to try to get the plans, try to get it finished, because I think that because all these businesses and individuals worked on it, it'd be nice to get it done for the folks. I mean, it's really needed up there.
Yeah, we've supported as a committee. There are some certain caveats for some specific items like the concession stand specifically that may not be eligible if it's not deemed as part of the recreation. But the bathrooms are, because that's needed for the attendees, et
Well,
cetera.
we use the concession stand there for
And
our
so there has to be
programs.
perhaps a separation of some of the funds. And
Yeah.
and another rule is that if monies have already been allocated, we can't supplant those with new money. So if they said they already had the $15,000.
Yeah, that's
we
for the
can't
plans. yeah.
Come in with those 15,000. But those 15,000 could come up with plans that then could be funded through this.
Now, the time framing, like something like that, if they got the plans and they would like, what is the process? They bring it to us, bring it to this committee, and then we see if we want to do it. Is it even feasible to do something between now and the fall?
No, it has to, I mean, if you bring it forward, you want to keep working on it, but ultimately it has to go to a town meeting. So
Yeah.
the target would be the fall town
The fall,
meeting.
that's what I meant, the fall town meeting for the
Yes.
fall warrant. That's what I meant, feasible for the,
Yeah,
not to build it, to
absolutely.
do it, to get it on a warrant.
I thought you meant before.
No,
fall
I
town.
didn't mean like build it or anything like that. I
Yeah,
talk about the plans and then go to the warrant. Yeah, I get that part. Okay.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at, we have some requests, and that's why Tom is here from the Historical Society to talk about a request they will have for the fall town meeting.
Right.
And then
Okay.
we'll need to, then it rolls over to the May town meeting.
Okay.
And it takes time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is a good time to start thinking and talking about that.
Okay.
So we could certainly get together and have your folks come in, the folks that are involved or whatever,
Right.
to go
Okay.
forward.
Okay. It's just good to know. Okay.
Any other discussion points on the town meeting last night? Okay. So the finances is a typical, the next item, we do have the appropriation for next year. We have strong balance sheets going forward. I don't have the exact figures available, but I can get those and share them out. I get those in this big report that I have to pull out our numbers, but generally speaking, we have, several $100,000 available for projects with an additional $450,000 anticipated for this year. Okay, so then moving on, we're going into the current projects. As many of you know, Joanne was there, Dennis was there. They opened the River's Edge Park in Baldwinville, which used to be a small, it was a selectman's office at one time, but before that, it was a superintendent's office, and before that, it was Army Corps property. CPA funds were used to create open space, which was to tear that building down, do asbestos abatements, and then the remaining funds were used to design and build a park. The design specs and everything came in, and there was additional monies needed. And rather than come back to another town meeting CPA vote, the townspeople voted to spend some free cash at the last fall special to get that project done, and now it's done. So we could formally close that project out and let the treasurer know that once all of the receipts have been, because you don't want to shut it before all the bills have come in to be paid, but we could let her know that once that is done, that project can be closed and she can take it off the books. I don't think there will be any money left, frankly, because they had to go into additional funds from the town. But we could entertain a motion to close the River's Edge project and let the treasurer know.
I'll make a motion that we request that the River's Edge Park project be closed once all bills have been received.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a canvas vote. Carrie?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
I vote yes. Dennis?
Yes,
Mike?
Yes,
Candace?
Yes,
Okay, unanimous? Okay, very good. Other current projects, I know the Scout Hall project is ongoing. We could be, I know Bob Zozick is involved with that. We should probably seek an update at a future meeting for that, because everybody's just been worried about getting to the town meeting for now, but now it's time to catch up on that. Okay. My next, anybody else want to talk about any of the current projects we have? One other item is that I did go to the Dwelly Farm where North County Land Trust has had a project, and that's ongoing. They have another planting scheduled. Their project will go through another year because they'll get another year of plants to go into their field. But we also talked about the signage that will go up there, and we had Bob Zozick down there to talk about, setbacks of the sign from the road, and also clearing that stone wall down. And he's indicated he could get a crew down there to trim all the scrub so you could see better into the field, and that'll improve the visibility. And either we through our administrative budget, or if the North County Land Trust has the funding, because Bob's budget he has budgets for people and work, but police details, his budget is limited. So we would have to find a way to cover the police details for that, which could be 2 days at $400 a day if it was required. We don't know that it is, so $800. That is an allowable expense to our administrative budget. If we want to make sure that it's approved and available, we could vote for that, or we could not.
have we had a request for the funding to do that?
We have had a discussion. I had Bob committed to doing the work, but we have to find a way to pay for the detail.
is Bob something?
Yeah,
All right, I make a motion that we would cover a police detail at Dwelly Farm for 2 days period, totaling 800.
yeah. Okay, and there's a second by Carrie. Any discussion on that?
and that would be, the motion would be as if needed.
Right, if it's not needed, so we have to vote it to make it
Right.
available.
No, I meant in the
Yeah.
actual statement, you could say if needed, meaning if they don't need the money, we can not spend the money.
Absolutely, so that was inherent in your motion,
Yeah.
was if needed,
Okay,
okay. Any other discussion?
No.
And so, and this is just, it's good to get the formal vote recorded if we don't need the money, and just like with any project, we vote some monies, if it's not all used, it comes back to the
Okay.
the town, it doesn't get spent.
okay, that's good to
So,
know.
so we'll go through the vote on this item. Carrie,
Yes.
Joanne,
Yes,
I'll vote yes. Dennis,
Yes,
Mike?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Candace, yes, okay, unanimous. So up to $800 for 2 days of details
That's coming out of the administration.
out of the administrative budget. So the administrative budget, which is represented at 5% maximum of our total revenue, is approved by the townspeople and therefore available for us to spend on related projects. So because they voted at town meeting to authorize up to 5% of the revenue for administrative costs, we can then vote that money to be spent without a town meeting. All the other stuff has to go to town meeting
Right.
again. Okay, so. All right, so we'll move right along to the new potential projects, and some of these are ongoing. The first one we'll talk about is the Grange Hall, which is an ongoing project. It's been going on for several years. Tom Hurd, Vice President of Narragansett Historical Society, is here with some documentation. And is there anything, Tom, you could kind of lay it out for us, please?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the committee for previous funding for the Grange Hall. It's definitely helped move the project along. We're looking at it being a major event center for the community, for Boy Scout meetings, Girl Scout meetings, whatever venue would need a meeting place. And with continuing with our renovation, we have done quite a bit of work so far. As you know, the windows, the outside windows we're in. But currently we are remodeling the second floor to start. The next stage of the project is for insulation of the second floor and some sheet rocking and some finish up things. The volunteers will do a lot of the smaller finish work, which will save on the funding money for other parts of the project. And we have a real good base of volunteers that have come a long ways with helping out with that. And then once the second floor is done, we'll be moving down to the first floor. But second floor, there's an estimation of about 70, let me just check the number here. I believe it was 70,000 to 75,000 to pretty much finish the insulation and the sheetrock work. Should have left this stapled. Yeah, 75,000. So I'd like to present this application for you folks to look at. Let us know if there's any more information that's needed or clarification on the information that's on the application.
Okay,
If there's
Thank
any
you.
questions on what we're doing, where we're going with it.
yeah, so I will scan this and send everybody an electronic copy so that we'll have a chance to review it before we, discuss it in earnest at our next meeting. But essentially what they're seeking to, they've identified, they have a listing of all the different items that they're hoping to address to get cleared up. They have an anticipated total cost of about $250,000 for the project. And they're starting off with an aggressive fundraising campaign. Part of that, their goal is to come back to the townspeople and seek $75,000 from the CPA, Historic Preservation Fund, towards that $250,000 overall price. Is that?
That's correct. And the capital funding campaign is we're being helped with a couple of folks. That's what they do. They go out and they have what we really like to call rich uncles that have deeper pockets that are looking for things like the restoration of the Grange Hall to donate to. And that's what these folks do. They go out and find these people. And the person that Brian's been talking to said that the amount of money we're looking for is very doable with these folks. And again, like I said, we appreciate the fact that the CPC's been very generous with previous applications and funding. So
Yeah, and the thing to remember is it's our jobs to bring these to the townspeople, and the townspeople vote the money. So
right.
it's really thank the townspeople. And this is an example of a nonprofit private organization that has a grant award agreement that stipulates free access for Templeton residents as a result of the expenditure of public funds for the improvements we've made to rehabilitate the historic structure to date, which includes egress related to handicap compliance. And I know that's one of the,
The handicap ramp was recently completed within the last year and a half, I think it
that
was.
project finished up and there's still some residual funding left to continue to move forward. But I know one of the big things that you're looking for in this is ADA compliant bathrooms, for example, in the big.
That's in, because the bathrooms are on the first floor, that's probably either in the next phase or the phase right after that. I'm not sure 100% sure what phases are lined up with the order of them. And to go back, I didn't mean to leave the voters out. We very much appreciate the townspeople for supporting this project, which will hopefully bring the Grange back into a light of being a community type center.
Yeah, you guys have done great work to date. Does anybody have any questions or anything for Tom?
This isn't specific for Tom. I guess I was wondering, how much updating can we do and still maintain this as a historical?
Because it's a historic rehabilitation,
There's no limit.
you can change, like,
There's no zoning of historical buildings. No specialized zoning for historic buildings.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as it being considered a historical restoration. it's already-
there's a difference between a
Anything-
restoration and a rehabilitation. We've been through this every year, but
Yeah.
essentially, if it was to be a restoration, it would have had to have been declared, we are either restoring the tinsmith shop or we are restoring the Grange Hall, and everything had to be left as if it was that day in time, 1884. That's one standard. That's the restoration standard. The rehabilitation standard allows you, just like this building itself was determined to be historically important to the value of East Templeton, it was able to be rehabilitated. It's a historic structure that's rehabilitated for a new use.
So is it still considered a historical?
It's still on the historic register, and it is a historic building, yes.
Well, the Grange is in the historic district for sure. And
It's not violated by any of these.
That was gonna be my question, if that was part of the historic district in the
no,
center.
it's in the historic district. In Templeton, if you want to control your historic buildings in your town, you have to pass zoning bylaws limiting what those requirements are. You can't paint it any other color than white. You can't move away from natural wood. You can't, if you have a
Okay.
slate roof, you can't go to something other than slate roof. But all of those are zoning bylaws that have to be adopted by the town. And we have none of them.
Okay, and the historical commission will set those up.
Yes, if the town was so disposed to do that, which now they have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we struggled with over the years. Like, if you have to restore it to but we have found precedent where the rehabilitation enabled the use of modern windows. That was the killer.
And some towns you can't. If you go
That's
to
right.
our sister community, Royalston, and you're in their historic district, you cannot replace with vinyl windows or.
Yeah.
They have a zoning ordinance.
And that becomes a stumbling block for the folks that are trying to restore the buildings, because it adds substantial
It all
cost.
depends what you hope to gain by preserving historic buildings. I mean, it's really nice to have an Ethan Allen looking building, but nobody uses it. But I would rather have a building that has been modified and modernized to the point where people can use it on a daily basis. And I think that's what we're attempting to do at the Grange Hall. It's going to maintain a lot of its character. It's always going to have its history. Its history is going to be highlighted by the things that are on display there. And yet, we're going to bring it up to code and make it more accessible to the general public. It's a win-win situation for everybody.
Right.
And a good example of that too is the Baldwinville Elementary School project. You know, the town committed $1.3 million of CPA money to go towards a $20 million project, which is also going to get historic tax credits and other things by keeping the structural appearance of that old elementary school or high school, depending on where you were in time. But they're gonna update the elevator, they're gonna put apartments in there, and they're gonna build 2 new structures in the back.
And new windows and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a rehabilitation. If we call it a restoration, we would not be within the code of the federal regulations. But because we are doing a rehabilitation, we are within the guidance that I have received from the.
Particular building is not in a historic district. It is a surveyed building, but it's not in the historic district village. The Baldwinville Village Historic District does not go up School Street.
But in order to be eligible, there
Yes.
still have to be a determination that it's, so there's another caveat. There's a historic register, which automatically makes you eligible for historic preservation funds, or a local decision by the Historic Commission that it's important to the history of the town, which in this case, which includes the cultural history, which is how this building was declared to be of historic significance, because it was a cultural center of East Templeton, both for students, but also for the civic, bodies like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the state downstairs, et cetera. So that's all part, there's a lot of, rules and regulations that you really have to be aware of and to follow. So I think we're going forward. Well, I'll share this, like I said, I'll make an electronic copy for everybody to review it, and we can discuss it. And the goal will be that they are seeking to get an approved project for the fall town meeting.
Right.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you, Tom.
So I just want to make sure I understand. The restoration is to bring it back to the same use that it was.
That is what is called historic restoration.
And then
You choose
rehabilitation is to restore the
the
building
historic building to a new.
that to a unit. Okay.
Yeah, and the Grange Hall is interesting in unto itself, because it originally was the tinsmith shop. And if you said, oh, we want to restore it to the tinsmith shop, you'd have to tear down what they did to make it a Grange.
Yeah, half the building. Yeah.
So, you have to go with the rules, and we're doing the best we can. I think we're in good shape. Okay?
Good.
So moving on, another thing that we need to discuss for a fall town meeting article will be the cemetery project. We had originally discussed this. They're looking for the Common Bureau of Ground has some hazardous conditions related to the trees. And in order to get anybody in there to cut those trees, they have to climb them, because you can't get any equipment in there with any kind of lifts or cranes or whatever. And so they had gotten some pricing for that. And then we needed to get a second quote. We didn't end up voting an article. We need to revisit that, but there's also been further discussion about doing something down at the Baptist Common Church Cemetery, which there's a small cemetery that has no true public access. And so there's been discussions with the abutting landowner, Mr. Brooks, and the cemetery commissioners about placing signage and things like that. And so the question becomes, is there something that needs to be formally placed, such as an easement onto a deed to allow that, or is it just could just be an agreement, which would be fine. But the thinking, my thinking, at least I've talked to the cemetery commissioners, some is, let's figure that out, and then we could also pay for a sign to go up there. And there's always been discussion that Colonel Tucker, Mr. Brooks indicated to me, Colonel Tucker had been trying to get a historic, marker put up there in the 80s, but there was never any money. So maybe we should revisit that and look at a single project for the cemetery, because we couldn't just as we did approve monies from our administrative budget for a sign up at the cemetery behind the First Church, because we've spent CPA dollars there. We need to have a sign there, but we couldn't just pay for a sign at a place there's no project. So, because it doesn't tie, it's not an administrative expense of a project-based thing. So I'm thinking we should do a comprehensive project with the cemetery. Maybe they want to do something at Green Lawn as well that could do what they want historically about the Baptist Common Cemetery.
Now, they put up some real nice signage at Pine Grove recently. Where did that
Yeah,
come
that
from?
was a nice.
They paid for that,
They paid.
Yeah. yeah. And I think Green Lawn, they're doing or have done the same thing as well. So, but, yeah, and those are, of course, the active cemeteries. So these others are the historic ones that aren't getting perpetual care. Or whatever. So my point is that we need to get together with the cemetery commission to kind of nail down what they're seeking and try to do it in advance of whatever the deadlines will be for a fall town meeting, which
So the other sign, the one that you talked to prior to the town, I forgot, was it February? That one that they were close to, you guys were close to finishing that, to get that done. You want to add to that project?
so that one's ready to go. They just need to make it.
Okay, so
That's
because
been
I know
approved.
I had watched it and there was something about you had to vote it or a town meeting, so I didn't know if that got done.
The sign has not been done yet, but we have given them authorization to spend the money.
Okay, all right,
But they still have to go through the town process. I'll make a note to reach out again to them.
okay. And then, so this would be this other project.
So this would be, yeah, so put signage down. There's a cemetery on Baptist Common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it would be for that and maybe some historic discussion of the fact that this was a,
There should be a marker that the Baptist church was there and all that type of thing. Who, you working with John Brooks on that?
I've spoken to John Brooks and he's met with Joe Salata, who's the cemetery commissioner, chairperson. And
John is on the historical commission with me. I'll talk to him and see if he wants to get something started.
because if he also feels like he wants to put something in perpetuity, you know, there could be some legal expenses related to putting something on a deed if he wanted to. If he doesn't, that's fine too.
and then the tree cutting, that goes with this?
So because that would also be a cemetery project, it could all be in the same project. So
Okay.
it could be like, it could be as much as $30,000 for that tree work.
Ooh.
So it could be 30,000 or, you know, up to 30,000 for tree work and another 5,000 for signage. And, you know, if you look at, you know, the access where they mow a trail to get to the cemetery, they could actually put it right up against a stone wall rather than a highway in the field but it needs some attention. Now, maybe, you know, so what it, and that's one thing Mr. Brooks indicated, it's like, it would be nice to have it cleared up and in perpetuity. But of course, you know, it's his property. We want to work with him on whatever works best.
Would he want to give an easement or just a written?
That was the
or
question. So
disagreement?
it's been projected to him whether he would want to do an easement. He could even donate land to the town, but we couldn't, you know, buy it without an act of Congress. So,
Right.
you know, so that's just more discussion and you'll be seeing John, so maybe you could, thank
No,
you.
I'll reach out to him.
Okay, and the other item that was still also extending is there's been some discussion about the needs of the First Church of Templeton. That structure has had some serious issues, or it does have serious issues. There is, of course, concern we're now, you know, because there are so much protection for the separation of church and state and regulations and laws indicating that no public funds can be used to support you know, religious activities. We had a discussion with the attorney of the town's attorney, because they had requested, you know, to replace the slate roof, get back, you know, they have a leaking roof and they would go back to the original slate. But the attorney's point was that that is facilitating their meeting. They're holding religious services, so that would be questionable. And there's been a lawsuit about that in 2018 where a stained glass window in Newton, I believe, they had spent CPA money on and they challenged it in court and lost. And so they had to come up with a different way to pay that for that because it was a religious stained glass.
Mhm.
But so there's that so anything related to the interior is almost kind of taboo. It would be better if the town owned the building than the church, but because of church and state separation. But there is also that exterior, because the sills apparently the front sill was not replaced when they did a bunch of other work. There is the detachment of that ornamental face from the building. In order to repair that, it would be on the line of $165,000. Whereas that forms, and this is something the Historic Commission noted, that it forms the backdrop of the historic Templeton Common, and it's in all of our documentation, our town, website and things like that. It's an iconic structure, New England Village Church. So that might be something that would be acceptable because it's a secular type thing, especially if we had historic documentation, like if we showed, President McKinley in front of it or something like that, or we could take a picture of, John Brooks in front of it. That'd probably be.
No, there's a lot of photographs of Civil War drills and in front of it on the common. So,
Yeah, so otherwise, and then what they could do, they would do a restoration to put that same intricate structure, because that is a very world-renowned, or at least a nationally known architect that did that. There's been some research done by a young man who's the son of the woman that used to live in the kitty corner in the house there, on Wellington Road.
Oh.
Or Dr. What to do? No.
Anyway, they've done some research and, they've got a lot of information on that about the historic architectural recognition of that person. So that's another project that they would like to see go forward. They're also in the process of trying to find a capital campaign. They need, the roof is projected at $250,000 or something like that. They have a huge gap and not a huge bank roll. So we're gonna get together with the folks from First Church again to try to redefine that, and make sure we can nail down the prices and then talk more about it at this meeting in the future.
So looking at the church, if you follow the line that the church is a backdrop to the history of Templeton and all the pictures, would not the restoration of the roof to the way it was also be in line with that?
I
You know,
thought about that before, yeah.
If you are going to put it back as slate as it was in those historical pictures, wouldn't that line of reasoning be the same for the roof as it would be for the sills and the outside?
Certainly would be to me as well, but the attorney said that would not.
Was it approached to him that way?
Well, it was
working on the facade, working on the facade of the church is not gonna benefit the congregation inside the structure.
Yeah.
Working on the roof will benefit
Benefit them.
the congregation inside the structure. That's where he's making his
Oh,
difference.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a point too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it was brought up, I was like, yeah, we're gonna tear the shingles off and put slate on, make it more historic, and, but it was, like Mike mentioned, that the argument of the inside, the service is held inside. So, we have to be leery, but, so that was a request for $165,000. And so we've got some major requests coming, heavily weighed towards historic preservation, which is fine. Every year we have to allocate 10% minimum to historic, but we have another 65% that's available. And so we try to balance it with the requests. Those are, and now we'll probably get a discussion about recreation to go forward towards fall. I'll share with everybody the current budgetary info, and I'll bring a copy at the next meeting as well. Apologize for not having that today. And then we'll have a chance to discuss these things further next month, which is June, and that's another thing. Does anybody want to talk anything more about those things I've said?
No,
So another thing that,
Well, the only thing I would say is we need some hard figures, and we keep talking
yeah,
about generalities.
Yeah.
And, where the road meets the road is we need some figures, we need some plans. And
okay,
so, I mean, it's great to have these pie in the sky discussions, but we need some meat.
yeah, so this, and they have other documentation. We'll get that for the Grange Hall project, the breakdown of the anticipated costs that they got through a consultant contractor or whatever. The church has gotten some similar information together. We'll ask them to share that directly with the committee on those costs. And the cemetery tree work, we did get that second quote in there. And so I'll make sure that we have harder, faster numbers for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the question regarding the next meeting, we've been meeting at 6:30 on the second Thursday. Now, the farmer's market in town is on Thursdays from 4 to 7. We have a vendor there. Other people have sometimes commitments on Thursdays. Do we want to look at moving the meeting time and or day going forward?
We could move it, well, I think last year, didn't we move it later?
Time for me is fine. Thursdays, I got conflicts, but
I'm good at, I'm pretty open in the days. It just has to do with the rec meeting.
And do you know what days those are?
No, they're not consistent, so.
Okay, maybe once you have yours pegged, you could say, can we do a different day?
No, I'm just saying that if we want to take it, if you want to keep it on Thursday, that's fine. If you want to move it to a different day, that would be fine too with me. Whatever's easier for
I don't
everybody
want to
else.
change the schedule for one person who needs, so I'll just work around it.
Do we want to move it to 7?
7 would help, but that way I could just leave a little early, or I could have help packing up, the booth and then come.
Okay,
I'm pretty available any evening.
So you have a conflict on Thursdays also?
Well, I haven't started yet because I don't have my stuff ready to sell, but last year I sold at the farmer's market.
See, I'm
But I
at the
don't
Lions
mind.
Club and they have all their meetings on Thursdays, so.
Uh, I know I have land trust on Thursday, but it doesn't, I have a meeting on the second Thursday, but they usually hold it earlier, but I won't be doing that one at all this summer.
okay. So I am open to changing the day. I know, Dennis, you have a lot of meetings.
Yeah, Monday's not a great. Although if we have it at 7, it would be okay.
On the Monday.
On Monday.
We don't, and we'd have to look at what other
Yeah.
committees.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Tuesday is my plan board meeting, so.
Okay, so let's see about moving it to 7 for now, and then we can
Sure.
see about, and we can hold other meetings if we need to. And then, so I'll double check to make sure the building is available and that we can also get the help from TCTV starting at 7. Instead of 6:30, it'll be 7 to 8 for the next meeting. Is that okay? All right. If anybody gets here early and we're not open, just wait. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I was thinking about it, but so new business. Do you have any new business to come forward?
I have a question.
Okay.
Looking at the different sections that we can use CPC money for, one of them is open space. Are there any open space projects going right now? I mean, with the way the town is growing and all the new construction that's going on, we're very quickly gonna run out of places to get away and hang your hat.
You're absolutely right.
And so I just don't know if there are any open space projects are being looked at. When was the last big one we did? The Dwelly Farm?
Yep, the dwelling farm.
Maybe the Fernal School.
Yeah.
We ended up not getting that.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't do it, but we did it.
Right.
Yeah. We got it to town meeting and they got shot down and then Fish and Wildlife was able to get it. We do need to find out if somebody has an available parcel of land. There is one potential major open space consideration that would also combine with recreation, and it's, and there are even like some large landowners that might consider putting a conservation or recreation restriction on their property. That's something, I mean, we have a lot of land in the Chapter 61 programs, but that's not permanent protection. There is a right of first refusal for the town to, should somebody look to take it out of 61 to sell it for another use, the town never has any money available to do it. One question that might come up would be, I don't know, do you guys have anything?
What is, I don't really know yet because we're not parks yet. But that Hooten Park, I mean, what, does I can't pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know that everybody's been looking at it since when they tried to do that skating thing. But since then, I don't know what's going on with that. Like, I haven't heard anything in the town. I know people had gone and looked at it and talked about it.
Yeah.
Like you got all those old swing things in it that probably need to come out and, you know, the field, I mean, it's a great piece of property. It's always, I mean, my kids played T-ball up there and stuff. So I know the veteran thing was supposed to, or there's supposed to be a heroes park. I know the veteran, the veterans park, they were trying to do something with the heroes park or
Well, glad you
something.
brought this up because we did have a discussion about that. There was a meeting there and the light company has donated and done some cleanup work under
Yeah.
that gazebo thing. And then there was discussion of the Veterans Park and there was acknowledgement that the skating rink was gonna go. And the way, there was discussion of really, to nail it down, we needed to get a survey of the bounds and meets and bounds to know
Right.
where the boundaries were.
Remember that.
We had discussion about voting, CPA money for that, but that was at a time we were unable to get a quorum and we didn't vote it. I indicated back to them because then there was discussion that maybe the light company would pay for that,
Right.
but that never happened. Here we are in May and it's revisited,
I mean, we really, as a town, need to do something with those old things.
Yeah,
That's dangerous. I mean, some of those, I think it's when the school was there and, it's got the, I don't know, it was a duck or so, so some of that stuff is dangerous. I know there's a lot of grants and different things for park equipment and stuff these days. But
Would
then
you-
again, it could be just leveled down and put in, because they have, I see, it's like a hoop there or something,
Yeah, but that does need to be revisited. It has fallen off the radar.
Yeah.
Originally, a Veterans Park was gonna happen down by River's Edge, and then that didn't work because it was land that was conveyed to the conservation and didn't fit the conservation uses. So then there was discussion of moving it to the Houghton Park and make it a first responder or a heroes park to celebrate not only veterans, but other first responders as well. And like I said, we didn't get past or I wasn't involved with another discussion after that meeting, other than to say we would try to maybe come up with the money to do the survey. Maybe we should entertain
Yes,
doing that.
I think everything springs from the survey. I mean, you can't be investing money into a piece of property, not even knowing where the boundary lines are.
Yeah.
You have houses all around the perimeter of that except on the backside.
it benefit the people that live there too by
Yes.
getting the project done, because like I said, the other swing sets and everything, that's just, it's not good.
So to that end, that is something that would be another allowable use from our administrative budget. And this is a good time to spend that money because in the end of the fiscal year, any unexpended administrative budget reverts back to the unbudgeted reserve, and then we get a new allocation at July 1.
Yeah.
So we could, and I believe the figure that we've used and discussed in the past was to expend up to $3,000 for surveying and title research on a property. And
Is that enough?
I don't know. Everything costs more.
Yeah, I know, everything
Maybe we
does.
should-
Well, who would be able to get that information? Bob Souza?
Yeah, we need to vote a fund, some dollars, and then they can come up with a shortfall if there is one. But if we wanted to vote more than 3,000, that would be fine with me because,
Yeah.
5 seems like a better number.
Yeah, it does. It seems like that would
And
be,
anything that would be over the amount needed would come back to us or just would not be.
right,
expended?
would not be expended.
Oh,
So we
that's
would
fine.
say expend up to $5,000 of the administrative budget for surveying and other deed research related to the property at Otter River known as Holmes Park.
So moved.
So moved. Do we
A
have
second.
A second by Candace, up to $5,000 admin. Any discussion? These monies would be available for the town administrator because he's our procurement officer anyway, to expand, to engage the services of a survey and any additional title research or legal work related to confirming the meets and bounds of and available uses of that land. I don't know if there's any restrictions on that or, and even that even could include, I don't know if we even need to do like a dig safe or anything like that. I guess all the.
it should have been done when they took down the building. I'm just saying, yeah.
Should have been, it probably was.
That's where, yeah, we used to have to go there to
Fire
get,
there, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, the school had a fire.
Well, the building was used at one point for the board, it was the border house or
Yes,
something,
yeah.
you had to go get permits there.
Yeah.
Then they
Well,
found out that it was like this, was it? Yeah, that's what it was. I
They
remember.
had a fire.
Because I was just coming into town, when my husband lived here his whole life, but I personally just came in. And I was like, he's like, you can't go there anymore. You have to go over here now to get the stuff. I'm like, why? They're like, you, yeah.
There's a witch that lives in the cellar. Okay, so any other discussion on the $5,000 administrative budget request? Hearing none, we'll canvass a vote. Carrie,
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Dennis?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Candace?
Yes,
Okay, unanimous. Very good. I will let Adam and then there were other members like Tom Berry from the Electrical Light Department because they've done some work, Dana Blaze, the Light Commissioner, our librarian, Jackie Prime was also involved with that. And then of
Yeah.
course rec would be,
yeah.
who's the chairperson?
Jessica Sutton.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'll copy you on that. Can you just let her know?
Yeah, I can send it to her.
Okay, and then it would be up to Adam to get the money spent. 'Cause
Okay.
he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
How would we solicit any interest in landowners looking to preserve their land? Is there any way that we could do that?
In order for the town to buy land, it's,
I mean, land now is so expensive. It's
Yeah.
just-
Well, I think there, and I may be wrong, but I mean, there are properties in town that have tax liens against them that the
Yeah.
owners have no interest in. But a lot of those lands are in places where you really can't, wetlands and
Even saving wetlands today is
Yeah.
important.
landlocked areas where there's no access, due to the houses all around.
maybe we should meet with the assessors.
Yeah, and see what they have.
That's a good.
And there is some activity where taking lands for tax title, and there has been discussion about the American Tissue Mills and its land, its owner. There's some riverfront land down there. There has been some discussion, about a potential, North County Land Trust had some interest perhaps along the Otter River. There's a parcel of land that's held privately. Just reminded about this,
Right. Yeah,
that
off Hamlet Mill Road.
and off Hamlet Mill Road, there's another piece, and then there's another piece behind that's on the river that abuts that Hamlet Mill piece that guy from Cambridge has. So right in that area, there is some potential for riverfront type activity. And there had been some discussions with some state agencies and the land trust. And where that goes, we'll have to revisit it, but thanks for jarring my memory on that. That would be a great avenue that we could support. And then, and then now you see like they're gonna be building houses, right near the high school there. They cleared all that land to put houses abutting the golf course. The river's down there. There's a swath of land that's owned by that Gavazade gentleman that was the American Tissue Mills owner. Hasn't been paying taxes, but then there's also Depot Pond and it's a liability of the dam.
Mhm.
And what the town is gonna need to do for that going forward. Does it want to assume the liability, or remove the dam? That would change the whole water dynamic up there. So those are discussions that we just need to continue to have with Conservation Commission, with the town, town's management and agencies and boards. But if a landowner came forward, we would love to have the discussion. I don't know how to solicit them other than to go through, you could go through if you look at the assessor's maps and say, ooh, like who's doing this with what? And then we could qualify for a land grant, for purchase of land or something like that, or even a conservation restriction. But I agree. I mean, you see the number of houses that are going up. It's
I know, it's
insane.
just unbelievable.
And then we're gonna hit
202
10,000.
now.
202's got 4 more coming up there. 5.
And then
What's all of what's being cleared by the East Templeton Rest area, you can see Route 2 westbound. Is that what you were talking about?
That's up back of Baker Lane there. You mentioned that.
Oh,
could be
Bacon,
co-
oh, yeah, that's another major project that may well go in there.
Oh, that's gonna be housing up there.
Oh,
also.
yeah,
Affordable.
elderly housing.
Well,
And there may be more housing
Yeah.
off of Brooks Road. Because there's
Yeah, off Brooks Road, and then the one across from Aiken's garage,
Yeah,
and then goes to high school.
Yeah,
a
elementary
lot-
school, yeah, your high school. right?
a lot of affordable housing that's probably not gonna be affordable.
Yeah. Okay, so but that's good to keep that on that radar. We
Yes.
should probably promote another needs analysis meeting. We had one back in March, but we could do a focus on trying to do an open space type,
Mhm.
preservation effort in that people are aware of something that they want to bring forward. We should
Mhm.
discuss it.
I'm gonna continue to work with ecological restoration on the Otter River Pool. We have to wait for the next round of funding. So that probably won't be till the end of the year.
Yeah, so that could be a nice reuse of like the Otter River pool there, clean it all up and, Joanne's been working on that perspective. And there could be, so the state has a program, grant funded program that the town could apply for, but CPA funds could be used like in the future for planting trees or other, expenses to make it a nice open area for passive recreation. Because the town already owns it and it belongs to
Right.
Concom, I believe. but-
Yes, Karen custody.
And so they are, if you look through there are land holdings, some are, inhabitants of Templeton, some are conservation. But getting all that cleaned up would probably be a good task. All these little bits and pieces of land that the town may or may not own. They're getting rid of the small piece on Central Street. I believe that might be a parking lot in between.
I looked at it on Google Maps a lot in the town meeting last night. It's just a piece of woodland at the edge of the parking lot
Okay,
where Valia's garage used to be.
Yeah.
And there's a section of woods and then you go into the parking lot for the turtle. That section of land is,
okay, maybe where the trestle,
yeah, kind of where the trestle footing used to be. Yep.
yeah, and that's the thing with the legacy of time that, we could support cleaning up some of these deeds and things like that if it's of value and fits the mission. That's a good thought. So is any other new business to come up? Any old business? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move the meeting to 7 PM on the second Thursday of June. Which, if my memory serves me well, is the 9th, June 9th. Okay, other than that,
Make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is